Nesta sets her genius plan in motion when she requests Clotho's permission for the priestesses to train with her and Cassian. But her high hopes are met with disappointment day after day when no one signs up. Frustrated, Nesta returns to her private library, surprised to find her favorite sister Elain, and the two lash out at one another, causing Elain to leave in tears while Nesta retreats back into her mind. Filled with anger and self-hatred, Nesta's built-up tension with Cassian finally breaks, and the two have a passionate exchange in the hallway, but only Cassian finds his release. At the River Estate, the Inner Circle plots to find the legendary Dread Trove before Briellen, who is determined to bring war to their doorstep. A disagreement about which maid Archeron's sister will scribe for the Trove ends when Feyre announces her pregnancy. Cassian visits Nesta's bedroom to settle the score between them, and, losing hope that the priestesses will train with her, Nesta makes one last attempt by bringing her training to the library.
Hey there, we're Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy, your book besties who take the novels you love seriously. This is Jack.
And I'm Amy, and we bring the tools of literary analysis to the women-written novels lighting up book talk, from romance to romantasy. Think of it as your favorite fandom books, treated with the same respect you'd give a classic in literature class, just with more humor and less homework.
Each season, we deep dive into one book, breaking down themes, imagery, and character motivations. Together, we combine our 13 years of literary academic training with our fandom love to help you see your favorite books in a whole new way. We also analyze the story through two different literary lenses, giving you more than one way to look at the text.
This week, we're discussing A Court of Silver Flames, the most divisive book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. In this episode, we cover chapters 17 through 24.
For a complete list of episodes and the chapter breakdowns, be sure to check out our Instagram at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk.
Before we dive in, let's talk about S.P.I.L.T. Spoilers, perspective and interpretation, language, and themes.
Spoilers. This episode covers A Court of Silver Flames with full context from the preceding books in the ACOTAR series. That's Thorns and Roses, Mist and Fury, Wings and Ruin, Frost and Starlight. If you haven't read those, this is your only spoiler warning. Anything in the SJM other series and verse will be saved for our Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks episode, which airs this Wednesday.
Perspective and interpretation. These are just our takes, our personal readings of the text. We don't speak for Sarah J. Maas, and we know you'll have your own interpretations too. We love hearing them, so share away.
Language. We use explicit language. We can't help ourselves. My mother's disappointed in me. So keep your headphones in and the kids away.
Themes. We will also discuss tough topics like sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death. We do our best to flag heavier moments where we can, but listener discretion is advised.
As always, let's keep the conversation going. Tag us, DM us, or use the submission form on our website, or comment on Spotify. And if you want exclusive content and live stream, you'll find us over at patreon.com/booktalkforbooktalk.
Can't get enough of analysis? Make sure to check out the Subtext Society Journal, where we write think pieces discussing the romance and romantasy genres as a whole, the ongoing conversations in the bookish community, and insights into the publishing world. Join us over at thesubtextsocietyjournal.substack.com.
Each week we ask ourselves a question, and this week we ask, this wraps up part 1 of this book. What progress have we seen in the chapters, the plot, and the themes of this novel?
Themes we're seeing in this section today include sex as power, hope, and identity.
Fair warning before we go into chapter 17, this is the longest chapter in the world. Nothing was longer in any history of books than this chapter. So if someone's like, oh, I'll use the restroom once they're done with chapter 17, I promise this is probably going to take an hour, just this episode or this chapter.
It's like Mist and Fury, episode 1. I think chapter 2 took a full hour.
Really? That scarred you?
It really did, because it was about Ianthe.
That hoe. All right. Chapter 17. At the start of chapter 17, Nesta is asking Clotho if the priestesses can go train with her. When asked why, she says, quote, to strengthen their bodies, to defend themselves, to attack if they wish, but also to clear their minds, help steady them. Does this mean that Nesta has accepted that this is what training does? It's kind of 2 weeks in, and she's not going to say like, okay, Feyre was right, but it's safer for Nesta to project onto others than it is for her to accept that maybe this training is helping her. Maybe this is a good thing that can help other people. And this is going to be all about Nesta. Like later on, Elain's going to call her out on you take my issues and you turn them into your own. And this is kind of a good example of Nesta doing that.
Yeah, that's such a great point. It's like Feyre can't be right.
Yeah.
And so Nesta has to own it so that she's right.
Yeah. We all have that one person when you're just like, fuck, you're right. And Feyre is right a lot of times too, which is so unfortunate. What is nice is that readers are also seeing a full circle moment because Nessa's upset because none of the priestesses have signed up on day one. I'd be like, everyone's going to join. And then day one, you're disappointed. And Cassian tells her, quote, "It'll take time," Cassian consoled her when he read whatever lay etched on her face as she stepped into the training ring. He added a shade softly, "Keep reaching out your hand." This is exactly what he was told. We're still in part 1. We're only on chapter 17. So it's just kind of nice that we're getting these like complete moments, which I feel like this book is so big that SJM needs to have full circle moments within the sections.
Yes.
Otherwise, we would forget all about this.
Yes. There are a lot of big full circles, and then there are a lot of small full circles. And this is one of the small ones.
Together, they're polka dots.
Yeah, okay.
I hate the funny thing is I can hate that you can't argue it. I mean, you can, but you're like, she's not wrong.
Right. All right. So now begins the training montage of the book. Quote, "At training, Cassian began to instruct Nesta on basic footwork and body positioning in hand-to-hand combat. No punches or kicks, not yet. Nesta held that infernal plank for 10 seconds, then 15, then 20, 30. This is a great way to say time's passing, but it's also a little misleading. I definitely thought as I was reading this that a month passes, but it's only like not even a week.
I don't know what it was so hard for SJM to just have made this a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you're not losing anything.
No, agreed. Maybe because Nesta couldn't stay hopeful with the priestesses that long. Maybe.
Yeah, it's true.
Now, through her relationship with the house, Nesta is slowly learning that, you know what? Kindness begets kindness. Quote, "She said to the air, 'I found this for you. It's a present.' The book had vanished into nothing, but in the morning, she'd found a bouquet of autumnal flowers on her desk, the glass vase bursting with asters and chrysanthemums of every color." Nesta is slowly learning how to be a friend through her interactions with the house. And if we continue what I've been saying since episode 1 from the psychoanalytical lens, if the house is Nesta or Nesta's subconscious, she has to learn to love herself before she can change her relationship with everyone else. And so that is how the house is playing out for her.
Yep.
I also love that SJM has snuck some little meaning into the use of flowers because flowers have meaning, just like gemstones, just like a lot of things in life. Now, asters represent love, faith, and patience, number 1, and chrysanthemums are supposed to be about joy, friendship, and loyalty.
What I also love, again, I'm going to be talking another full circle moment, but just these little mirrors. We'll call this one a mirror. Nesta just gave the house a book, and in a couple chapters, Cassian's about to give Nesta a book. So we're already seeing what meaning and value giving a book has to Nesta. So that's why when Cassian gives her a book, she's going to really feel that.
Yeah. Now, Nesta realizes that reaching out can be vulnerable, especially when the other party doesn't reach back. And this is in the context of the priestesses. Quote, "But what would it matter?" she began to wonder, "if no one bothered to reach back." So Nesta's experiencing a dichotomy. On one hand, she's having positive exchanges with the house, and she wants to replicate that with the priestesses, but she feels like she's being ignored. And what she's really learning is what it's like to be Cassian and be on that receiving end of silence. Remember, we've seen a lot how her greatest fear is to be rejected, especially for who she is. And that fear is going to play a huge part in this episode.
Yep. Now, in this episode, there are a lot of similarities to Cassian and Nesta, like I was saying, mirroring. In this moment, Cassian is telling Nesta and kind of helping her, like, when you punch, you have to be careful, otherwise you're going to break your wrist. And then Cassian says, quote, "That's why a good warrior knows when to pick his battles." He lowered his fist. "You have to ask yourself if the risk is worth it each time." This is such a meaningful lesson for her too, because Nesta loves to pick battles. She loves to argue with people. And so many times she needs to really ask herself, Should I be doing this? And the
Mhm.
answer most likely is no. And you do
Right.
catch her having those moments, right? When Elaine's about to come in and she says like she can't stop it. So like she knows there's a moment of reflection there. Now, at this point, Nesta keeps doing the stairs, like her 10,000 step challenge, but it's, well, actually, like we walk 10,000 steps. It's easy.
Yeah.
Normally flat, but
And
whatever.
yeah, but also going in tight spirals.
Spirals. She faces some challenges. But what I love about this is that Nesta's relationship with the stairs has changed. Quote, she didn't mind this training. It cleared her head. Only in the quiet moments did those thoughts pounce again. And when that happened, the stairwell always beckoned, the infernal 10,000 steps. Before, when she'd had these thoughts, it was always the pleasure halls. It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll, baby. And instead, what's calling to her is the physical action of the stairs, of walking the stairs. Like we said like 2 seconds ago, she's accepting that, okay, the training, working out is helping.
Which is great. She's a physical being. She needs physical activity.
It's like every time I weigh myself or when I go to the doctor's office, especially, they're like, oh, your blood pressure is at a healthy range. I'm like, fucking hell, working out works. Damn
It
it.
does. Now, although Nesta is learning that, training isn't so bad and she's nurturing her relationship with the house, she's not 100% changed. She's not completely absolved of everything. She still feels a lot of self-hatred and it haunts her. Quote, but would it do anything? The training, the work, the stairs, beyond keeping her busy? The thoughts still waited like wolves to swarm her, to rip her apart. We are returning to the wolf imagery that started earlier in this book. And remember, back then, Nesta's thought was, I became a wolf, but the wolf ate me, essentially. And so we see Nesta being prey to her own mind. She is scared of being stuck with just herself and her thoughts because her thoughts are the wolves.
Yep.
The image is repeated when she recalls her father's last words to her. Quote, I loved you from the first moment.
He sounds like an idiot.
In my mind.
Nesta, I loved you.
I mean, in my head, that's what he sounds like. I loved you from the first moment I held you in my arms. The wolves prowled closer, claws clicking. Not good for Nesta.
No bueno.
So Nesta, she's worked all day, she's trained, she wants to have a nice, easy night in the private library. But Elain decides to show up unannounced. And Nesta is not mentally prepared for it. And we already know she's in a precarious situation with her mind. The wolves are prowling. Now, this is a recipe for disaster because immediately Nesta is comparing herself to Elain. Quote, she peered down at herself, bony and gangly. Her sister turned toward her, glowing with health. Now, Nesta's comparisons to her sisters are not just reserved for Feyre. Elain has become like Feyre, is part of the inner circle, and Nesta is not. And it doesn't help that Nesta feels like Elain and Nesta have swapped positions. Nesta has essentially regressed, and it reminds her how she has not moved on from the war like everybody else. Quote, Elain stopped a few feet away, like Nesta was some sort of disease-ridden leper. How many times had it been this way, only with their position switched? Elain had been the ghost then, too thin, with her thoughts turned inward. Somehow, Nesta had become the ghost, worse than a ghost, a wraith whose rage and hunger were bottomless, eternal. Nesta has become so other. She's more distorted than Elain ever was because she is more consumed by the grief and loss than Elain would be capable of, essentially.
Yeah. All right, we got a page and a half of just my notes, so buckle up, kids. You're about to hear my voice. All right, I really, really love how much I hate this scene. And I don't hate it in the sense that it's bad writing. It's fantastic writing because of how much anger and emotion SJM is evoking from us. And especially with everything when it comes to Elain, even with what she's wearing. Quote, Elain stood at the wall of windows, clad in a lilac gown whose close-fitting bodice showed how well her sister had filled out since those initial days in the night court. Gone were the sharp angles replaced by softness and elegant curves. Nesta knew she herself had looked like that at one point, even if Elain's breasts had always been smaller. Okay, there's going to be an ongoing comparison between the sisters, like Amy was saying. Elain is plump and glowing, even though she's not plump, but like she's not a wraith like Nesta. But what I also find fascinating is the comparison of sex and femininity and innocence. And I find Elain and Nesta to be the duality of women, where women are either the seductress feminine, dark feminine, or the innocent virginal. And you really have these two sisters at odds with one another, tapping into that because Elain is the innocent one. And God, she pisses me off because no one gets mad at Elain. She's everyone's favorite. She's the ultimate feminine, girlish, childish of the sisters. And that's a role she's leaned into.
Mm-hmm.
She chooses naivety. She chooses to not be helpful continuously. This is going to come down to the fact that back in the cabin, Nesta and Elain didn't help Feyre, okay? And Elain continues to be useless. All right, we're ranting. Even later, when Nesta steps up and goes, okay, I'm going to find the trove, what stops Elain from continuing to try to help? Genuinely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, wouldn't it be better for both of them to be hunting for this thing? What is it that Elain suddenly is like, okay, well, I guess you're going to take over. I'm going to stop now. She plays into this role. And at the same time, Nesta idolizes Elain for this. Everyone idolizes Elain for this. Quote, Elaine's smile was as bright as the setting sun beyond the windows. Now we're coming back to that environmental lens, right? This time the environment is reflecting on Elain to highlight just how innocent she is, right? Her smile is as bright as the setting sun beyond the windows. She is this beautiful ray of sunlight, right? You can even argue that Elain is the sun about to set, just as Nesta is the one to set the sun, to darken the sun, you can say. Let's talk about some hypocrisy. Quote, God, sorry. I'm not going to promise that I'm not going to be annoyed with Elain this entire thing. So, quote, how many times had they been in this room during those initial months? How many times had it been this way? Only with their positions switched. Elain had been a ghost then, too thin with her thoughts turned inward. Somehow, Nesta had become the ghost. Worse than a ghost, a wraith whose rage and hunger were bottomless, eternal. Elain had only needed time to adjust, but Nesta knew she herself needed more than that. It's interesting because, like, did Elain need time to adjust? I don't know. It's, yes, Elain has adjusted. Yes, Nesta needs more than just time to adjust. But at the same time, you can argue that Nesta is actually dealing with emotions while Elain isn't. We don't know what's in Elaine's head, but we know that Nesta's spiraling. We know that there's a lot of avoidance of conversation. Feyre is not the only one who didn't reach out to Nesta after the war. Elain didn't reach out to Nesta. Elain, who Nesta is supposedly the closest to, she's the one who dropped the ball with Nesta. Do you think Nesta would have been able to open up to Feyre in those initial moments? Maybe not. It still would have been hard, but she would have had a hell of a lot easier time if Elain had stepped the fuck up initially and been there for her sister.
Yeah. Especially because Elain was also there when Papa Archeron was killed.
Right? Like, she should have reached out. And you could say Nesta should have reached out too. Yes, but clearly Nesta's having a harder go of it. So time to be a good sister and step up. But once again, the only sister that's stepping up is Feyre currently. And we have unaddressed pretty privilege. Quote, Elain had gone from lovely to devastatingly beautiful. Elain never seemed to realize it. Never trust a woman or anyone who does not recognize their pretty privilege. In this case, this is pretty privilege, and the fact that Elain just like, oh my God, she doesn't recognize it. I'm not beautiful. Like, we're all beautiful. Fuck you. Like, women need to recognize pretty privilege, just like there's skinny privilege, there's white privilege, there's all the privilege. Recognize it. Now let's go into how Nesta was raised and views herself and views women, particularly her sister, because Nesta's mom impacts her relationship with her sisters just as much as it affects her relationship with her own self. Quote, Elain is pleasant to look at, her mother had once mused, while Nesta sat beside her dressing table, a servant silently brushing her mother's golden brown hair. Okay, so beauty is meant to be served. It is a privilege that is to be taken care of because your looks are everything. Even though her mom kind of also isn't like your looks aren't everything, because she'll say something about Elain in a moment that I'll read. But just imagine this moment. Her mother isn't even brushing her own hair. Her mom is having her hair brushed by a servant while deeming this wisdom to Nesta. I'm going to continue. This is her mom still talking. Quote, but Elain has no ambition. She does not dream beyond her garden and pretty clothes. She will be an asset on the marriage market for us one day, if that beauty holds. But it will be our own maneuverings, Nesta, not hers, that win us an advantageous match. Her mother, Mama Archeron, places more value on maneuvering, on manipulation, on strategy than she does on beauty. She says very casually, if her beauty holds. It is a realization that I don't want to say beauty fades because that's implying that age does not equal beauty. Beauty shifts and changes and adjusts. That's what happens. The beauty that Elain has in her teens and her 20s will not be the same beauty she has later on. And if there's anything that you can bet on is to stay strategic and stay conniving, which is what her mother is telling Nesta to do. We're going to continue the quote. Nesta absorbed every word of her mother's scheming, plans for futures that had never come to pass. We shall have to petition your father to go to the continent when the time is right. Her mother had often said, there are no men here worthy of either of you. Feyre hadn't yet been considered at that point a sullen, strange child whom her mother ignored. Everything here is set up for Nesta on how she's going to view her sisters. The way that Feyre is just disregarded, the way that Elain is also just a pawn to be used. The way that the world is not good enough here, it is always somewhere else. This is very much a grass is greener situation. This area does not have the men worthy of you. It is over there that has the men worthy of you. Honestly, I feel that dating in Los Angeles. That's the quote goes on. Her mother keeps giving these wonderful life lessons. Quote, human royalty rules there still, lords and dukes and princes, but their wealth is tapped out. Many of their estates nearing ruin. 2 beautiful ladies with the king's fortune could go far. I might marry a prince? Nesta had asked. Her mother had only smiled. And this is what's beautiful is that you have the irony that Cassian is born of nothing, but he is also known as the Lord of Bastards or Lord Cassian or the Lord of Good. And I love that struggle there. And it also is an interesting thing because her mother really taught Nesta that femininity is a weapon, but not femininity of your looks, femininity of the mind, of being able to have a strategic match, of being able to marry up. That is the femininity that Nesta's mom put in her. Especially in a couple of chapters, Nesta's going to talk to Cassian about strategy, about like, whoa, I didn't realize how much it took to strategize. It's just like home. Like this is prepping us for that moment. I can tell you want us to like power through because you're like, yep, continue.
No, I have nothing to add. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. Continuing, I want to highlight a fuck Elain moment. These are my actual notes. And these are moments when I really hope that the reader is meant to see that Nesta is not being treated completely fair. God, I hope that when people are reading, this is one of those moments when they're like, that seems not right. So this is what Elain is saying. Quote, I know the circumstances for your coming here were awful, Nesta, but it doesn't mean you need to be so miserable about it. I sat by your side for weeks. You don't need to be so miserable about it. You don't need to be miserable. She has been there for 2.5, maybe 3 weeks at this point, training for 2, threw a tantrum for 1, if you want to be generous.
It's only been a week.
Right? Like,
yeah,
it takes time. And to say that you don't have to be miserable about it, for me, my note is literally just cunt. Like that was one of them. But in all seriousness, I think this talks a lot about Elain. I mean, we already know that Elain was taught to just sit there and look pretty. She does not have a mind for strategy. She is meant to just sit there, look pretty, and don't rock the boat. If you want to look deeper into this moment, her saying you don't need to be so miserable about it, I think it speaks volumes onto how Elain views herself and how you should act, that you should be smothering down your own emotions on don't act up. The one time Elain was emotional, and honestly, I want to argue, she wasn't so much emotional about turning Fae as she was stuck in her own prophetic mind. Like she was sad about Grayson and like losing that. And I don't want to like knock that down, but she also was having these visions and didn't know what the hell was going on. And it wasn't until she kind of like got herself out of it that she was like, oh yeah, I am sad about Grayson, but like we're going to move along. And there's like this hot Azriel guy. It speaks volumes. And I hate having sympathy for Elain, but here we are. Elain, I feel though, is one of the judgiest characters when it comes to sex. In fact, I will double down on this, that she is the judgiest character when it comes to sex. Elain tells Nesta, quote, I wasn't drinking myself into oblivion and doing those other things. Fucking strangers. Elain flinched again, her face coloring. Elain and Nesta are both weaponizing the feminine in different ways. Again, they are both two sides of the feminine coin. Elain is this virginal innocent, while Nesta is this dark feminine sexuality, and both are wielding this as a weapon. Later on, we're going to get this quote. Elain stepped closer, brown eyes wide, undoubtedly wholly convinced of her own innocence, her inner goodness. The inner goodness. Oh, just cringe. I hate that. Huh?
It's innate goodness.
Innate.
Which is even
I didn't even read it correctly.
Intense.
Her innate goodness. That's even worse than her inner goodness. Innate. Damn that bitch. And damn my inability to read things correctly. Anyone who's wholly convinced of their own goodness should not be trusted. You should be questioning yourself left and right. Are we truly doing the right thing, the good thing? And this is weaponizing what is good and what is right, because it's just the way that we see it all the time now. People shame sex. They consider it not being good. They weaponize this idea of, well, you're not being good. You're sleeping around, and women shouldn't sleep around. And that then gives them reasons to justify their own actions. Honestly, Elaine's giving conservative Republican. I said it.
So I'm going to talk about it later, but one thing to think about is Nesta's unreliability. Yes, Elain is being super douchey right now, but it is through the Nesta filter.
Oh, absolutely. You're completely right. There's reasons here, and I know when we get Elaine's book, I am going to feel like shit.
Until then, though, be angry as much as you want.
Yeah.
And Nesta is angry, and that wolf imagery from earlier is coming back to wreak havoc on their relationship. Nesta remembers her role with Elain throughout their lives. Quote, it was always that way between them. Elain, sweet and oblivious, and Nesta, the snarling wolf at her side, poised to shred anyone who threatened her. In a lot of ways, Nesta was holding up Elaine's sweetness and obliviousness on a pedestal and acting as the protector, right?
Yep.
The predator that warded off any men who came her way. But just like Nesta's internal wolves are threatening to eat her alive, Nesta, the wolf, is now threatening to turn on Elain. All the wolves are stabbing each other in the back.
I hate my head because all I could hear is who let the dogs out.
Nesta?
Yeah.
Quote, she forbade her leash to slip completely, but she felt it, the stirring of that terrible beast inside her, felt its power surge, blazing yet cold. She lunged for it, shoving it down, 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 but it was too late. Nesta doesn't yet know how to control or fight her inner wolf, and because she's weak to it, she succumbs to it. And I think it's a learned behavior / pattern she hasn't learned to break. Quote, if Elain was so determined to root out the good in Nesta, then she'd show her sister how ugly she could be. Let a fraction of this agony rip into her. Nesta no longer knows how to be a protector. And maybe she never was a protector. Maybe she's only ever been a fighter, because all she does is attack other people. She doesn't know how to do things for the benefit of somebody else, at least not yet. And I think that will change over time. And this moment with Elain of, I just want you to hurt as much as I hurt, foreshadows when Nesta's going to tell Feyre the truth about her pregnancy. If Nesta's hurt, everybody else has to hurt too. Now, this next part isn't necessarily a breadcrumb, but Nesta notices something different in Elain. It's the first time, and it won't be the last time. Quote, challenge filled each word. Challenge from Elain of all people. Now, I have to pose the question, is this change, quote unquote, change in Elain because there's some off-screen development taking place? Or is it because Nesta's seeing Elain through a different lens, no longer as the older, favored sister, but instead as an opponent, as an enemy?
At one point, Elain and Nesta talk about their dad, and it's just the topic of him that just absolutely, quote, smothered the fire in her darkness until she was cold and empty and still once more. Nesta's got some issues, clearly. But what I love about that imagery is the fact that she is fire. And without the fire, she is empty inside. And we kind of have to just find that right balance of fire, right? Because it's not about getting rid of her fire. It's about finding that right fire so that she's not cold and empty inside. Elain and Feyre accepting their father's death is more than the usual grieving process. Quote, Elain had accepted his death as inevitable. She hadn't bothered to fight for him, as if he hadn't been worth the effort. Precisely as Nesta knew she herself wasn't worth the effort. Remember, Nesta and her dad are the same. Her dad is as irredeemable in her mind as she is. And if they can move on and past his death like nothing's wrong, then they can move on past her just as quickly.
I think that's such a great point. And it speaks to how vulnerable she feels, how much she doesn't trust her sisters right now, and how afraid she is that they will pass her up. I also want to point out that Nesta's assuming Elain has accepted their father's death as inevitable. Where has that been said? And we're going to see a trend of Nesta putting words in people's mouths. So again, remember, she's unreliable. Do I think Elaine's being shitty? Yeah, I do. But I also know Nesta's not completely unbiased.
Oh, yeah. We don't know what's in Elaine's head. I mean, and when you're miserable, you just assume everyone else is doing better than you.
Yep. I know I'm guilty of it. And you assume everyone hates you.
Yeah. It's a bad place to be in.
All right. Now, Nesta recognizes there is ugliness in her, and that ugliness is so much darker than when she was human. Quote, this was a different beast entirely, from a place as dark as the gloom at the base of the library. It's a nice little breadcrumb for the fact that the darkness in the library reflects Nesta's heart, because the house's heart, because it's Nesta's heart. It's all one and the same. Now, the scene ends with Nesta's self-hatred triumphing. In Mist and Fury, wolf imagery linked to Feyre was empowering, and she embodied it. But for Nesta, it is self-hatred incarnate. Quote, she didn't stop the wolves when they gathered around her again. Hateful, razor-sharp truths on their red tongues. She didn't stop them as they began to rend her apart. And, quite frankly, if she's torn herself apart, is there even enough of her worth saving? And in Nesta's mind, no, she doesn't think there is.
Yeah.
Now, Rhys gets protective of Elain when Elain comes crying, and I think it's mostly an excuse to get irritated with Nesta.
Yeah.
And I'm really proud of Cassian for sticking up for his woman. Quote, calm the fuck down, Cassian snapped. They have their own shit to sort out. You threatening to obliterate Nesta every time it comes up doesn't help. I do appreciate, and I think this speaks a lot to Cassian's affection for Nesta, because Cassian is a general, he's a soldier, he respects rank.
Yeah.
But despite his rank, his love for Rhys, and his respect for Rhys, he is able to call Rhys out on his bullshit. And I think that makes a good man.
Yeah. Like, it's sisters. You don't get in the middle. You let the sisters figure their shit out.
Yeah. Now, Nesta is a foreboding presence when Cassian goes to see her. He doesn't see her as vulnerable, even though we know her to be vulnerable right now. He instead sees her as a queen embodying the wolves inside her. Quote, Nesta was sitting in an armchair before the dark fireplace, fingers digging into the rolled arms of the seat. A queen on a quilted throne. When she rose to her feet, she was a pillar of steel and flame, her lips curling back from her teeth.
I like the idea of a quilted throne because it's like quilts, patchwork. It's obviously not like a regal throne, but just the idea of like she's a patchwork of scars and emotions.
Yeah, and she's barely holding it together, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, even though Nesta might be hurting right now, Cassian is not above calling her out, just like he just called Rhys out. Quote, you tear into the people who love you until they eventually give up and leave you alone? Is that what you want? I mean, yes. I think that is what she wants, Cassian.
Yeah, you answered that.
But Cassian is beginning to see Nesta is possessed by a wolf, and when she's not, she's dead inside, and that is concerning to him. Quote, Nesta's gaze lit with that silver fire, her nose crinkled with animalistic rage. The siphons atop his hands warmed, readying for an enemy he refused to acknowledge. Her eyes slid down to the red stones, and when they lifted again to his face, the unholy fire in her stare was gone, replaced by something so dead and vacant, it was like gazing into the unseeing eyes of a fallen soldier on a battlefield. He'd seen crows pick at eyes that dead.
Oh,
what a gruesome image.
Gruesome, beautiful, just fantastic writing, SJM. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And even better, that took a half hour-ish.
Yeah, we did a great job.
All right, let's drink.
Before I take my sip, I will say I like that Cassian's imagery is seeing Nesta as a fallen soldier on a battlefield, because essentially Nesta hasn't come back from war. She did die on a battlefield.
That is beautiful. I mean, like, yeah, she's died on a battlefield and she is a soldier and she tried. She didn't get here for nothing, there was
Right.
reasons.
Okay, take a sip.
Now we're allowed to sip.
We're now in chapter 18, and Nesta is struggling with the fact that none of the priestesses want to train with her and Cassian. Like we talked about in last week's Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks, the priestesses are a reflection of Nesta and Nesta's mind. Like Jack said earlier, Nesta is projecting onto them. Although Nesta believes that the priestesses are actually deserving of healing in ways she doesn't believe she deserves. Quote, Nesta opened her eyes. Some of them have been here for hundreds of years and still haven't been able to come back from what they endured. So what hope do I have? Nesta's physical exhaustion makes her willing to be emotionally vulnerable right now about others. And by others, I mean those who reflect upon her. She is not willing, however, to be vulnerable about her father or their similarities. So if you want to talk about the priestesses or Gwyn or Emery, fine. But you can't talk about her and you can't talk about her father.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there is an interesting trend, I think, worth pointing out. When Nesta trains physically, she finds that she's able to control her mind, and those racing thoughts and self-hatred kind of get drowned out. That training leads to exhaustion. And it's always at like the end of training or during a break that she is able to let go and be vulnerable. And she asks Cassian questions or is willing to answer certain questions. And I like the moment between Nesta and Cassian when he tells her about how he destroyed the village where his mother died. Because for the first time, she sees an ugly rage in Cassian that I think she identifies with. Quote, she blinked up at him, the weight in her vanishing at the vicious words. Cassian's face held only ancient rage. I honestly don't think Nesta's ever realized Cassian was capable of rage like that, which is essentially rage like hers, because he is someone she admires. She sees him as the epitome of goodness. So for him to be capable of feeling pain and raging the same way she does is super meaningful.
Yep.
I also want to point out that we're in chapter 18, and this is the first time anyone has given Nesta permission to feel her feelings. Cassian tells Nesta, quote, it took me 10 years before I was able to face it, what I'd done to those people and what I'd lost. 10 years. So if you want to take 10 years to face whatever is eating you alive from the inside out, go ahead. You want to take 20 years, go ahead.
I love this because it really is a moment of what does it mean to face something and what does it mean to not be functioning? Because in those years, I bet Cassian was still functioning. I'm sure Rhys was, I think, High Lord probably by then. He had to be a general. So it's kind of this idea of you don't have to face it, but you do have to continue to be a functioning adult and not spiral. Like those are two separate things. And this is the first time that I feel like it's been kind of laid out like that, even though he's not saying it like that. You still have to infer, but it's kind of like a, you got to fake it till you make it type of thing, right? Like just keep going and one day you'll face it.
Yeah, I think it's about, you have to choose every day to face it until you get through it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Nesta was just running away.
I mean, even if it's like, you don't have to choose to face it every day. You just have to choose to get up, go do things. You can ignore it all you want. Just don't spiral that way. And then after 3, like Mist and Fury, Wings and Ruin, Frost and Starlight, 20-something% into this book, we finally get a kiss. And Nesta grabs Cassian because she's kind of like pissed off that he thinks that he's won. And she was like, fuck you. And she kisses him. And this, I think, is setting up the precedence of what intimacy is with them. This is their first kiss, guys. This is their first real kiss. Like, this is the couple laying on the battlefield, dying, saying that I'll go out with you. Like, I don't want to say it feels anticlimactic, but it's anticlimactic in the romantic sense because it immediately erupts into intense, smutty passion. And I love it, but it also sets up this, again, the precedence for what the relationship is like.
And it starts out with spite. It's not from a place of romance or love. It is from a place of spite.
Yep.
Take a sip.
Take a sip.
All right. We now enter chapter 19, and I want to talk about power in the context of this heated kiss. Quote, the moment Nesta hit the wall, the moment Cassian enveloped her, it destroyed any illusion of restraint. Now, up until this point, Nesta has found power in restraint. It's either choosing to let go restraint when it comes to sex and alcohol, or choosing to restrain herself when it comes to Cassian, because everything with Cassian is about holding back. But that restraint, at the end of the day, is an illusion. Now, what does that tell us? It tells me, at least, that Nesta needs to find power elsewhere, that letting go of the restraints on her true self are probably key to her happiness, and that if she finds power in restraint, she needs to find that restraint over something different.
Yeah, I love the descriptions here and the way that Nesta describes Cassian, quote, and the taste of him, the snow-kissed winds and crackling embers. She is fire, he is her embers. But I also find it to be interesting because isn't the crackling of the fireplace kind of the thing that reminds her of her dad dying, of his neck snapping? So we're kind of like getting the layers of daddy issues in there. Also, never kissed a guy who tasted like snow and crackling embers. It's
Right.
just hilarious, these descriptions. And I know every book has this where it's like citrus and a cold breeze on a rainy day. And it's like, no, they taste like the last thing they ate. And God, I hope it was decent tasting. I'm just happy they're not a smoker.
Yeah.
And then I have this question. Quote, their tongues met and parted, and he licked the roof of her mouth. Huh? Does anyone like that? Remember, like, October, November guy? He was, like, into messy kissing.
Yeah.
As he called it. I don't think I could have,
I mean, to me, it's tonsil hockey. It's where you go really deep with your tongue.
I don't have particularly big teeth. I like how you had to really reflect on that to be like, does she have big teeth?
I did. I have to look at you. Look at you.
It's just not the sexiest thing of like, I'm going to lick the top of your mouth. I don't know. This is when it's like, where's my guy? I need a guy. Like, come lick the roof of my mouth, please. Let's confirm this.
It's not for everybody.
The request of, I need you to gag me with your tongue was not it.
I'm not going to knock it because there are people who like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. There are. It just
Jack is not one of them.
I was just so in my head where I was like, like I was like, is my tongue like it was just like I need to get the angle. I don't think it's happening. My mouth is small. The dentist said I have a small mouth, so like good luck trying to fit that shit in here. It's like, you know, straight women have enough to deal with dick in the mouth. I don't need to like figure out how to lick the roof of your mouth in a slow and seductive way. It's too much work. It's mental gymnastics.
I'm sure it helps if he has a long tongue, which
God, I bet it helps. Trust me.
I was going to say, I think he does, given how he goes down on her later.
I know. The way he goes down on her, and she describes it, he goes deeper than I thought. What? What kind of tongue does Destriam's husband have that she can be referencing this? Maybe I've just been with guys with short tongues. I don't know.
Can I move on?
Yeah, go ahead. Please, readers, someone just go up to their husband right now, or girlfriends or partners, whatever, and just be like, babe, I need to try something with you. And then lick the top of the roof of their mouth and then come back and report to us, please and thank you.
I want to know the reaction too.
Yeah. Record it, actually. Not the kissing part, just the reaction.
Now, proud Nesta, willing to sit on a cold rock for 2 hours instead of trying to Windhaven Nesta, is willing to crawl for Cassian and his voice. Quote, so responsive, he purred in a voice she'd never heard, but knew she'd crawl to hear again. That is unstrained Nesta.
Their first kiss just makes sense, right? Like this chaotic burst of sexual tension. Quote, she'd go mad if she couldn't get these clothes off, go mad if he stopped kissing her. We really have skipped the first romantic kiss. Later on, when we do get a romantic scene between the two of them, which honestly I can't even remember, but I know it will happen inevitably, that's going to feel more intimate and scarier. And it makes sense that it's going to go straight into hot and heavy hooking up. And then later we're going to get that emotional intimacy. And It makes sense not just because of their personality types, but because they've been waiting for this moment for books, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have crazy sexual tension building up just to have one chase kiss. Not these two.
Nope. Now, at the end of the day, though, Nesta's fear of rejection is greater than her desire. And girl, I understand. It's likely exacerbated by the fact that none of the priestesses have accepted her invitation to train yet, though. So Nesta's looking at Cassian, and he's just cum in his pants. And she thinks he's looking regretful. Quote, she didn't want to hear his words of regret, that this had been a mistake. She wouldn't let him hold that power over her. So Nesta curled her lips in a cold, cruel smile and said as she left, someone's quick off the mark.
Oof.
Rough. She has to hurt Cassian before she can be hurt by him. That is the wolf inside her. And that is the wolf whose restraints she needs to handle, but has lost control of.
I've never used that line. People are getting way too much info about my own personal. I won't say with who, but I will say this has been used. Was that it?
I think you've said that before.
And it wasn't even trying to be mean. It was just me trying to figure out, like, we're done now. That's it. I need you to confirm that, please. Okay. But we are truly getting in this chapter, in these scenes with Nesta and Cassian, that sex is power.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I love when we switch to Cassian's point of view because, like Feyre and Rhys, they were all night and stars and blah, blah, blah earlier in the series. Nesta and Cassian now share their own imagery. So Jack had read earlier what Nesta tasted when she kissed Cassian. Cassian, quote, the taste of her had been like fire and steel in a winter sunrise. It's just a perfect compliment.
He's the ember to her fire.
And
right now, tasting me is like liquid IV and the legendary protein bar. Not sponsored, or it is. I don't know who our sponsors are for this episode, but...
Now, this is what SJM is good at. Like, no, I don't know what the fuck an ember from a fire tastes like. I mean, maybe like cigarettes. I don't know.
I've tasted that before. I can tell you it's not hot.
But what SJM's doing, she's showing compatibility through the imagery and characterization through taste and smell. I also want to point out, I didn't earlier, when they were making out, Cassian's breathing heaves like a bellows. And that's from Nesta's point of view. And in last week's episode, Nesta's breathing was also like a bellows. So they're repeating the imagery.
Hey, are you hot enough for me yet?
Ultimately, it's showing that these two are one and the same. And if you really want to think about it together, they are the forge that will create weapons, aka the Valkyries. Now, the unreliability of these two from their points of view creates angst and yearning of the best kind because it's so frustrating and it's not really miscommunication. They're just making bad assumptions. They both view the makeout differently, but ultimately they are also the same. Cassian views Nesta as hating it. Nesta views Cassian as hating it. Ultimately, they are both vulnerable. They're afraid of being hurt, and they assume the other doesn't care. From Cassian's point of view, quote, and then there'd been her parting shot, blasting what was left of his pride into shards. Quick off the mark, she'd purred, like what they'd done hadn't meant anything.
I'm happy it's resolved quickly, though. We don't have to wait too long in this angst. Side note, Daddy Azzy is funny. I forgot. Quote, so this is the next day when Azriel and Cassian are having breakfast. Quote, did something happen that I, as your chaperone, should know about? Azriel's dry question. My note is, no, Jack, don't like him. Emotionally unavailable. We can't accept that. Emotionally unavailable. Side tantrum. I am notorious. I have a type of looking guy. They could all be brothers. They are a certain brand of funny looking, but they all look kind of similar. And your girl tried to be breaking away. Let's stop going for these emotionally unavailable men who all somehow look like they could be cousins. We're breaking free. And I was over at Amy's place today talking to her fiance, and I was just showing her, I'm like, look, I matched with someone, just showing her. And we're like, does he look the same? I was like, no. I just jumped on so fast, Amy. Does he look the same? No, he's different. Okay. I'm growing. He's a different brand of funny looking.
Yes, and I'm proud of you.
And my
But you
two
were
gym crushes are different too.
It's true.
Neither
They're all
of them
very
are funny
different.
looking.
It's true. That is
The
true.
earth is healing. Take a sip. We are in chapter 20, and my note is first, but Amy has a funny intro, so I'll let her start it.
Nesta gets to go on a field trip and gets to visit the river house with Cassian and the rest of the inner circle.
Little field trip. And when Nesta and Cassian walks in, Nesta notices things. Quote, she followed Cassian into the beautiful house, barely noting the round table in the heart of the entry, crowned with a massive vase full of freshly cut flowers, barely noting the silence of the house, not a servant to be seen. I want to note the word barely. It implies that she doesn't even notice it, but the fact that these are the things that she's quote unquote barely noticing means that she is noticing it. It's one of those very unreliable narrator moments. I remember we have a friend, Amy, and he was telling me about a book he read. And in the book, he was saying, he was like, it was so weird. The character was saying, and I didn't check out his ass when he was walking away. And I certainly didn't look back. And he was like, well, why are you telling me you didn't do these things? And then he was like, you did do these things. So that's what's happening there. Now, what are the things that she is, quote unquote, barely noticing? The first are the flowers. They are the fresh cut flowers in the entryway, in the heart of the entryway. These flowers were likely cut by Elain, and it shows that Elain has nestled herself into the heart of this home and court. Additionally, it's the silence of the house, and it's so opposite of the constant roaring in Nesta's head. Silence is what Nesta strives for, and that's what this house naturally has.
Just a mockery of what Nesta doesn't have. Now, we get to learn about the Dread Trove, and somebody needs to track it down, and only made beings can track it down. So, it's Nesta. So, like during the war, a powerful object that needs to be tracked down through scrying, Nesta is selected as the best candidate for the job. During this conversation, Feyre asks Nesta what happened in the cauldron, and Cassian tries to divert the conversation, which I love because he's a king. Now, because he's paid her this kindness in a moment of reciprocity, Nesta chooses to be vulnerable / brave and answer Feyre's question. And that's a trend we start to see in Nesta's interactions. Those who stand up for her, those who are kind to her, are repaid in kind because Nesta is, quote unquote, paying off a debt. Quote, Nesta dared a look at Cassian, who gave her a soft smile. Like in saying the few words she'd managed to get out, she'd somehow done something worthy. Her chest tightened. Nesta needs approval. She doesn't get a lot of approval, and she would be loath to admit it, but she likes receiving Cassian's approval. She likes that by repaying his kindness, he has approved of her. But it's a double-edged sword because Nesta's self-loathing comes in and attacks her for wanting that approval. Quote, had she done so many unworthy things that her scant contribution earned that much praise? Instead of being proud that she managed anything at all, Nesta has to berate herself for the meager quality of her offering because she's in a really grand house where everyone has done so much, and here's Nesta having done almost nothing.
Other than killed the King of Hybern.
Right. Killed the King of Hybern, but that's not what she focuses on, right?
No.
She killed the King of Hybern after her dad was killed.
Yep.
She scried for the cauldron, and then Elain was kidnapped. She tried to master her power and saved Cassian, but 1,000 Illyrians died. So
she really looks at the negative side of things.
Yeah, she's a half glass empty kind of girl.
Yeah. I know someone like that sometimes.
Me? I know who I am.
Every once in a while, I'm like, no, it's the other way of looking at it. Another moment here that I find to be, I'm going to stop saying interesting, of note, as mentions that he got some information and Nesta guesses that it's from torture. Quote, he'd tortured it out of someone. Many people. Nesta glanced at his scarred hands, and Azriel tucked them behind his back, as if he noted her attention. Nesta was really worried about coming here and being judged by others, and she's currently, in theory, judging Azriel. I don't think she's judging him. I think she's just observing him. And I feel like this could be interpreted in many ways. And one of the ways you can look at it is that Nesta continues to seek evidence of people who have struggled and been redeemed. So
Mhm.
Asriel has killed many people, and yet he's accepted here. Maybe Nesta can also be accepted. It's the same way that she looks towards the priestesses. They've been through hell, and if they can survive, then Nesta can survive. She looks for validation in others, Asriel included.
I think that's a great point.
Thank you.
Now, Jack has previously talked about religious imagery related to Nesta, and I felt like putting on that religious lens in this scene because when the topic of Koschei comes up and people say he's a Death Lord, Nesta asks, what are Death Lords? Quote, so then the inner circle all turns to look at her and quote, their stares struck her like stones. Now, anytime we talk about like throwing stones, it always, because I, was raised Christian and read the Bible, blah, 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 always reminds me of the adulterer in Christ in the New Testament, where the people outside the temple are like, she's an adulterer, kill her with stones, throw stones. And Christ comes up and says, those of you without blemish, or those of you who have not sinned, you can cast the first stone, which means y'all are fucking sinners too. So get the fuck out of here.
I'd be in the back being like, sure? Like, what? What defines blemish?
Nesta in this scene, if we're looking at it through the Christian religious lens, is that sinner being struck down by the inner circle because they're not sinners. She is the sinner. She's the one who cannot be redeemed. And it's interesting that it's tied to the question about the Death Lord, since that's what Nesta essentially is, though they don't really understand that yet. Just an interesting little, I've said interesting a lot, just a cool little piece of literary analysis.
Super cool, guys. We're like really cool here. Just two cool kids.
On a Sunday night.
If you're going to a witch store, buying a lot of crystals.
Tell me you live in LA without telling me you live in LA.
The worst part is we had to drive outside of LA. I mean, technically within LA, but if you want affordable crystals, you got to leave LA proper.
Yeah, you got to drive 40 miles east.
When you have to drive past Pasadena, like
that's commitment.
And then you buy too much and then you have an hour to drive home to really reflect on it. We're not talking about personal experience at all. When you're like, did I need $60 worth of witch soap?
Apparently you did.
Oh, wait, it was only $30. We're fine.
I was going to say, it was only, you only got 3.
Yeah. It's still so much witch soap. It's been spelled.
But you use it every day.
Because I'm clean. Nesta gives a little bit of information about her time in the cauldron, and Feyre looks at her in a way that Nesta just cannot understand. Quote, there, that was all she would say. But Feyre nodded, eyes shining bright with something Nesta could not place. That is love. That is pride. It is something that is positive, yet something that Nesta cannot place. And what I like about this is that Feyre is pregnant. She is a mom, even though Nesta does not know that. But what she just viewed that she does not understand is a mother's pride and love, something that Nesta is not familiar with at all. I have some notes on this chapter that I find to be funny. Just really funny writer notes. Quote, why didn't we look for the trove when we were hunting for the cauldron ourselves? The book was easier to find. Additional, how was it that Asriel was able to remember and bear the information here? Perhaps once you learn of it, recognize it, the spell is broken, Amren said. Or perhaps the Dread Trove wants it to know of it now, for some dark reason of its own. That is an author fixing up some plot holes if I've ever seen one. I don't envy SJM because at this point she has many books of lore that she has to work around, and I'm not going to give her shit for this because I cannot say I would have done better.
Yeah.
But it is hilarious where she sat there and was like, shit, I need to answer this question.
Yep. But you know what? I believe it.
Yeah, I'm on board. I mean, I do think it does take a little bit of, what's it called when you, like, disbelief, suspension of belief or something like that?
Yeah, suspending your disbelief.
Yeah, you kind of have to lean into it and be like, okay, I think that if this is the thing that kind of catches you or you're like you can't move past it, I think you're the problem.
Okay, take a sip.
I mean, it's like sometimes you just gotta lean the fuck in. Are you gonna take a bite? Is it different than take a sip? Wow. Take a bite.
We're now in chapter 21, and like their previous interaction, Nesta is noticing something different about Elain. Quote, Elain remained in the doorway, her face pale but her expression harder than Nesta had ever seen it. Again, I come to the question of reliability because maybe Nesta's just never really paid attention, or maybe Elain is developing off screen. And I can't tell which it is right now. I do think SJM's trying to get us interested in Elain because Elain is going to have a book eventually. Who knows when? But I think we have to become interested in her. And Nesta's ire with her is one way.
Good luck getting me interested. I do find it to be symbolically fascinating because Elain is at the threshold, which normally represents change, but Elain doesn't cross the threshold. She stays there and then she turns around and leaves from there. So for me, this is symbolism of like stepping up to change, but not actually doing it. And
yeah, not to.
I think that it holds true because Elain says, I'm going to do this, and then does it, regardless of Nesta. She could go be doing her thing anyway.
True. So Elain and Nesta have a little tiff in front of everyone, and Nesta does what Nesta does best. She uses her words as weapons, and she's very conscious of that fact. Quote, Nesta countered, fighting her shaking. She found the words, the weapons she sought. Now, I do have a bunch of questions that were part of my stream of consciousness when I was writing my notes. Let me start with, is this use of weapons, words as weapons, self-taught, or is it part of her mother's quote-unquote education? I'm going to go with education. And when I think about that fact, it brings up all sorts of other questions for me. Because what if the things that readers don't like about Nesta were the things her mother nurtured in Nesta? What if, from a young age, her pride, her spite, and her silver tongue were developed and honed by her mother, and the reason why we see Nesta use it most on her sisters is because that's the only form of love she knows? Because her mom was shit-talking everybody else in the family.
Yeah, she was.
Nesta can be ugly with her family because they're family. Meanwhile, she has to perform in front of other people. Now, what about the inner circle? She gets ugly with the inner circle because it's the only way she also knows how to protect herself and her sisters, because they are extensions of her sisters. Like, there's so many ways to look at it. But this is one very traumatized woman who was never raised to be a normal human.
No.
At the end of the day.
She really wasn't. She never stood a chance. Elain does have a good point, though, that we're going to have to give her. So at this point, Nesta's like, no, you can't do anything. You have to stay inside and be safe. I refuse for you to be useful. And this is when Elain says, quote, you can't have it both ways. You cannot resent my decision to lead a small, quiet life while also refusing to let me do anything greater. Then go off on adventures, Nesta said. Go drink and fuck strangers, but stay away from the cauldron. Elain has a very good point. But again, this is all part of Mama Archeron's training. Nesta's battling between what she was taught and what she feels. Nesta is about to give it to Elain verbally, but before Nesta lashes out, because Nesta lashes out when she feels like she's been lashed at, right? So Elain says this first, quote, do you not remember the cauldron kidnapping you, bringing you... So this is actually Nesta talking to Elain, but you'll get there. Do you not remember the cauldron kidnapping you, bringing you to the heart of Hybern's camp? I do, Elain said coldly. And I remember Feyre rescuing me. Roaring erupted in Nesta's head. Elain knows what she's doing with that one. Elain knows exactly what she's doing with that. This is a very sore subject that Feyre has always been the rescuer. And nothing could have hurt Nesta more in that moment. Maybe more than like, our father loved you or never loved you. You know what I mean? Like that's also an option. But I don't think anyone actually sees how much of an insult this is because it's truth. I think Elain is very good at manipulating the truth to her advantage.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, she's capable of it. Yeah. And Nesta calls her out for it. And it's a verbal blow on Elain. Quote, but Nesta cut her off, seething at the pity about to be thrown her way. Look who decided to grow claws after all. maybe you'll become interesting at last, Elain.
Such a good line.
Such a good line.
Such a good line.
SJM staged this moment so well because we saw from Nesta how, when in a passionate moment with Cassian, she lashed out because she thought she was about to be rejected. And so that pattern repeats itself here. And quite frankly, I think we can be more empathetic to Nesta when she calls out Elain this way, even if you think Elain is right, because at least we understand Nesta better when she becomes patronizing. It's in defense of herself. It might not be her true feelings, doesn't excuse it, but we understand it.
It also feels so meta. I think like SJM really heard people saying like Elaine's not that interesting. I feel like that was for the reader so that everyone could just be like, oh, I said it too. Meanwhile, I'm over here. I'm like, yeah, you're not interesting. So Elain has some good, honest moments here. Quote, I went into the cauldron too, you know. It captured me, and yet somehow all you think of is what my trauma did to you. Shit. Yeah, that's true. And that's a very real flaw. That is something where you turn other people's pain into your own. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't pain. A lot of familial pain happens when there's something traumatic that goes on. And I've had friends whose siblings have gone through horribly traumatic things, and it does put them through the ringer. It's the fact that Nesta never let it move beyond her own experience and her own understanding. That is the part where you're like, girl, Nesta, you could have the higher ground right now if you had just been better.
Yeah, if you just talked to Elain about Elaine's experience.
Yeah. Now, the next moment for me is Nesta's lowest point in the whole book, in the whole series, I would dare argue. And I feel like this is because she's not lashing out and that this doesn't come from a place of anger. A lot of the really mean things that Nesta says comes from a place of anger and lashing out. You can absolutely understand, even if you don't agree with it and you know it's wrong, you know where she's coming from. This moment, this is her worst self. This is Nesta pleading to Feyre to be the one to search for the trove. Quote, can't you find the trove? She hated each cowardly word, hated the fear in her heart, hated that in merely asking, she exposed her preference for Elain. Nesta is blatantly willing to sacrifice Feyre in order to save Elain. And that, to me, is the cruelest thing that Nesta has done. And honestly, Feyre is better than I, because I would have held that one to my grave of like, well, fuck you. Somebody kick her out of the House of Wind. Go over there then. But it is unfortunate. There's nothing redeemable about this moment. When I say redeemable, I mean like understanding. There's no moment of like, well, at least she was angry. I get that. This comes from a low, insecure place.
No, I don't excuse it. But you also have to keep in mind, like, Feyre's not mad at Nesta for asking this. And I could see from Feyre's point of view, rationalizing it as, well, I do have power from all 7 High Lords. I'm strong and I have Rhys and he's strong, right? So I can see from Feyre's point of view being like, Nesta probably feels like no one will protect Elain and I have a lot of people in power that will protect me. It doesn't excuse Nesta, and Nesta's right to be mad at herself, hating herself for it. I think what I like about this is that, you know, you're not supposed to have favorites, but you have favorites in your family.
Everyone has favorites.
Everyone's got favorites. It's just a fact.
I was texting my cousins, Evelyn and Dre, in a group text, and I was changing their rankings of my favorite in the text. I was like, Evelyn, you are officially my favorite. And then Dre said something. I was like, nope, I switched it back. Dre's now my favorite. Ranking of number 1 has rotated.
But I think Feyre doesn't balk at it because Feyre's always known Elain was Nesta's favorite.
She's used to it.
Yeah, and it doesn't change Feyre's self-worth at the end of the day.
This is the part where she's done the work and she's grown.
Yeah, exactly. Now, it's at this point that Feyre reveals she can't search for the trove because she's pregnant. And so everyone's excited except Nesta. Quote, Nesta said quietly to her sister, congratulations. For she'd said nothing, had only been able to stand and watch them all, their joy and closeness as if she were looking in through a window. Reminds me of a Taylor Swift song. She's an outsider to the happiness and closeness of the family.
It reminds you of a Taylor Swift song, then you should have added it like I did. I look in people's windows, transfixed by rose golden glows. They have their friends over to drink nice wine.
I was thinking of the one from Midnight's about like watching her person have Christmas with his family through a window. I forget what it is. Midnight Rain. It's Midnight Rain. I'm pulling it up now.
Does she say through a window?
I'm looking it up.
Okay.
Yep. So I peered through a window, a deep portal, time travel, all the love we unravel.
Had nothing to do with Christmas in there.
It came like a postcard picture, perfect, shiny family, holiday peppermint candy.
Okay.
But for him, it's every day.
Yeah.
So I peered through a window.
Okay. She's got 2 songs about looking through a window.
She feels like an outsider.
We've talked before about Nesta and Rhys's relationship, and I think this is a very good moment to highlight that. Quote, Nesta let him see it then, that she bore no ill will towards Feyre or the babe. It was self-preservation, perhaps, some new fey instinct in her that had Nesta bowing her chin slightly, letting him see she meant no harm, would never hurt them. Rhys's own chin dipped. That was that. They are the same. They can be in a very even playing field. And motherhood is different for Nesta. It's something that's even more precious than she can even understand because of all her mommy trauma.
And she knows deep down Feyre is going to be a better mom than their mother ever was. I do want to point out, because this is Nesta summed up in a couple sentences. Quote, if it was between her, Nesta's thinking about herself. If it was between her and Elain, there was no choice at all. Nesta would always go first if it meant keeping Elain from harm, even if she just hurt her sister more than she could stomach. And at the end of the day, when you're upset, you can love someone and still hurt them. And that is Nesta.
Yeah. Tension with Feyre, where there doesn't have to be tension. Like, Nesta just loves picking a fight. So at this point, Nesta and Feyre have walked out the door, and Feyre tells Nesta that she's having a boy, and she's just trying to be nice. And Feyre was like, yeah, she's having a boy, and I didn't know. And she says, quote, I didn't realize how much I wanted a boy until I knew I'd bear one. Likely because having a sister was so horrible for you. Feyre sighed, that's not what I meant. So much projection here. For Nesta, daughters are to manipulate. They are to own. They are to marry off. They are a piece of the puzzle. Like, so of course she would be like, yeah, a boy is better, you know? But yeah, so it's sad.
And this is once again Nesta putting words in her sister's mouth. And she does it again when Feyre tells Nesta that Elain discovered the pregnancy before anyone else. Feyre says, quote, I wanted you to know this part before anyone else, the gender of the baby. I hadn't realized you were keeping score. Feyre gave her an exasperated look. I'm not, Nesta. And again, it's projection because Nesta keeps score.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And she assumes the worst about everybody.
Just a little bit.
We move on to chapter 22, and we get a friendly reminder that Cassian sees the best in almost everyone, even when they don't deserve it. And that includes Nesta. Quote, though he'd winced at every harsh word that had come out of Nesta's mouth to Elain, he couldn't fault the fear and love behind her decision, could only admire that she had stepped up, if not for the good of the world, then to keep her sister safe.
He just completely forgot about the part where she was willing to sacrifice Feyre.
Yep. Those mate glasses working for him. We do, though, see how much he's learned about how to interact with Nesta from the way he suggests letting her come to her own decision about the methodology when Az wants to force Nesta. Quote, let Nesta try it her way first. Cassian held Az's stare. If we go in and order her to do it, it'll backfire. Let her exhaust her other options before she realizes only one is viable. I love a man who can learn, and Cassian's learning.
Before Cassian decides to go eat Nesta out, there's a few reasons that get him there. So him and Azriel are having a very casual dinner, and Az asks, quote, do you want a child? Cassian couldn't stop the thought that flashed of him and Nesta against that wall a level below. No, he does eventually say, yes, I want kids, but that's like also not the immediate thought. Normally it'd be like, the thought of Nesta's belly swollen, you know what I mean? Like that's normally the immediate thought. Then we have this, quote, he supposed deep down that was what he'd been holding out for, the mating bond, what he'd seen between Feyre and Rhys. Cassian blew it out another breath and got to his feet. Azrael lifted a silent brow. Cassian aimed for the door. He wouldn't be able to rest until he settled the score between them. And it's he just will not let his mind think about the future, about the mating bond, about love, about kids. He needs to turn it to sex. He needs to turn it to evening the playing field. He just needs to shift that mentality because it's too dangerous to let his mind go somewhere romantic.
Because he's afraid it'll never happen.
He's afraid of rejection. Yeah.
He doesn't want to hope.
No. And that's why when she tells him later that it's just sex, we get this quote, something shifted in his expression, but he said just sex. So he's sad.
He is a sad little boy. But, he did come over to Nesta's bedroom to tuck her into bed like, a good friend does.
I think it was removing the sheets and removing her clothes. That's there was no tucking other than graphic words of his tongue and inside her, getting real deep in there.
So we are in Nesta's point of view when Cassian comes to her bedroom, and Cassian comes across as a predator. Quote, Cassian still wore his leathers, the overlapping scales of them full of shadows that made him look like some great writhing beast as he shut the door. He's powerful, he's a dangerous beast, and he's come to her safe place where she's vulnerable.
Oh.
Her bedroom. Now, Nesta can smell that Cassian is aroused. Quote, it set her pulse hammering, careening so far off the path of sanity that she scrambled after its vanishing leash. To let him affect her so easily, so greatly, unacceptable. Reason, sanity, restraint, those are all animals that Nesta holds leashes to until Cassian. And you know what? Then the proper lady in her is like, well, fuck. Let's let go of these leashes.
Where are the leashes? Somebody get the leashes.
Cassian unleashes her, and she will unleash him.
Yeah, it's a lot of animalistic imagery. There's a lot of growling and roaring and it's very aggressive sex and explicit. I approve wholeheartedly.
I do too. Well, and I think, on one hand, Nesta's saying just sex. On one hand, Cassian's trying to protect his heart. But on the other, is it also because, as we know, they are mates?
Yeah.
And they haven't done the claiming part yet. And so that primal mate instinct is coming out.
There will be that time when it kind of clicks for Cassian and he has to leave for days so that he can try not to fuck it out with her. But they're just different. They're aggressive, They're hot. Side note though, it's never too hot, never too passionate to ask for consent. Not just verbal consent, no nodding. It's a let's hear yes. And he does it twice before he goes to the bed and before he eats her out. So consent is hot.
Consent is hot. Now, like before, Nesta is feeling vulnerable before Cassian, goes down on her. And therefore, Nesta has to try to use her words to defend herself. Quote, she grappled for anything to guard against him. Male pride is a thing of wonder. When he didn't respond, she threw another wall his way. Why are you even here? You made it clear enough that last night was a mistake. Cassian is like, what? What mistake? He's not backing down. He knows Nesta uses words as weapons when she's protecting herself. He just witnessed it at the river estate. So he proceeds forward and Nesta is defenseless. Her usual weapons and shields are nothing against his desire. His desire is stronger. Quote, his entire being seemed to focus on it, on her. All 500 years of being a trained warrior, an apex predator, all of it narrowing on her. It's so funny because he's being vulnerable also.
Yeah.
They're both vulnerable, but they're both predators at the same time.
Vulnerable predators.
Vulnerable predators. And Nesta gets turned on by the predatory nature of Cassian. Quote, Cassian lunged for her, a beast freed of its cage, and she barely had time to twist toward the edge of the bed before his lips were on hers, devouring and claiming. What I find most fascinating about this moment is that Cassian has caught her in what should be Nesta's safest place, and she's let him come into this inner sanctum despite her intention or her efforts to keep him out. Because at the end of the day, she does really want him. And then Cassian starts to purr like a cat. And then he makes a sound, quote, like some sort of starved, tormented creature. And I have to ask, does it mean he's not a predator? Or is the predator more lethal because he's been starved? I'm going to go with the latter.
And why is he purring? Is it like a Fae thing? Is it a bat thing? Why are we into it? I mean, is his mouth on her while he's purring? So does it add a vibration thing, but isn't purring more from the chest? Does she not have questions? I feel like that would be the first thing that I would say is, huh? Excuse me. What's that noise? Are you purring? Is this a Fae thing? Like, why is that not a greater concern? Is all I've got to say. We are in chapter 23. We're getting closer, guys. And at this point, it's after they had sex and not sex, mouth sex. He ate her out. And
oral sex.
Oral sex.
Mouth sex.
I forgot that's what it's called. They had mouth sex. That's the only thing I'm going to be calling it now.
It is lips to lips.
Hey, I can't wait for me to be like, text you, just had mouth sex.
Did I tell you the joke? Or it's not a joke. My mom asked me a serious question because Emma had got tulips tattooed on her leg. And my mom was like, is that a lesbian thing? 2 lips. I'm like, oh, that's clever, Mom.
That's funny. So it's the next day, and Cassian is thinking, quote, watching Nesta climax had been as close to a religious experience as Cassian had ever had. And remember, Nesta continues to be compared to a god/religion. She is, in fact, a death god. So it makes sense. Nesta then watches Cassian and Azriel train. And this is when I'm so grateful that I have a good imagination and it can be detailed. You know, it's a glorious image to behold. And it's also very funny. Cassian knows Nesta is watching. Quote, Nesta's stare seared him from across the ring. Cassian might have flexed his stomach muscles as he approached the chalk-lined circle. Az shook his head and muttered, pathetic Cass. Emotionally unavailable, Jack. We do not appreciate a dry introvert. No. Damn it. Okay. I can have a dry introvert, just emotionally available. So later in the library, Nesta reflects on watching Cassian and how she wants to go to Paris with them and how she's already made the trip to Paris twice.
Good
now,
for
if
her.
someone is saying, what's that? Like my dear, sweet, innocent cousin, I won't name which one it was, who asked, what's Paris? And I said, well, Eiffel Tower. And she said, what's that? Okay, so it's a woman on her hands and knees, and a guy is going at her from behind while she's giving a blowjob to the other guy. And in theory, they high five, and it makes the Eiffel Tower.
Or the men kiss.
Or the men kiss. There's so many options. There's so
many options.
I mean, the Eiffel Tower, like it goes higher. They can kiss and high five. And that
there you go.
Double top. It's just a sight to behold. Quote, Nesta had already had 2 males in her bed, not once but twice, and had enjoyed every second of it. But the males Nesta had shared herself with hadn't looked like Cassian and Azriel, hadn't been Cassian and Azriel. Nesta had made herself focus during the lesson, but as soon as she left them in the training ring, filthy thoughts had poured into her, leaving her half distracted while she walked down to the library. The thought of Cassian pumping into her mouth while Azriel pounded into her from behind, the 2 of them working her in tandem. And then she gets cut off from the thoughts. And this to me is like, sex is not a bad thing. Exploring your sexuality is not bad. Like, good for fucking Nesta. Good for every woman who has. And it's her journey. I feel like this is a great moment that SJM is saying her journey was not a completely bad journey. It was messy. It didn't have some good things. There was an alcohol problem, a gambling problem, but like sex doesn't have to be bad. Also, the lore is that SJM wrote the scene and that her editor had her remove it. And I will remember that.
I choose to believe she said it would not be in character for Azriel, and that's why it got removed.
It's bullshit. It's completely in character with Azriel. I feel like it's so character with Azriel. Look, she already said that the 3 of them had sex in the same room. All right.
Yeah.
You just remove one woman and they share. It's like, you can't tell me that they haven't done this already. Yeah. Give us the scene. Give me the artwork. Give me the artwork.
Just like create an AO3 account and do some random pen name and then post
Write it myself.
No. I'm telling SJM to post it on AO3.
SJM, note to her. This is like the reason why I think she said she wrote it somewhere. This is the reason why we want to be friends with her, just so that like not to get inside her head, but just to get that scene.
Now, Nesta is in the library and she is thinking about the Dread Trove and wants to figure out how to find it without having to scry. And because Nesta doesn't necessarily respect Rhys, she's not inclined to keep its secrets, which is why she's fine telling Gwyn about the Dread Trove, even though she's not supposed to. Quote, Nesta supposed that in doing so, she directly disobeyed Rhys's orders for silence, but to hell with him. So I just bring it up because it's another breadcrumb for why she's willing to tell Feyre about Feyre's pregnancy issues.
Yeah. I love SJM's writing style in this book. And there's just this moment where I feel like it was purposeful and not lazy writing. Any other person, I would be like, this is potentially lazy. But with SJM, you know, it has impact here. So we have this quote, Nesta offered a tight smile. Thank you. And then on the same page, quote, Gwyn offered a tight smile. That's not for me, I'm afraid. SJM would never have the same description in the same page. She's too good for that. Sorry for anyone who has done that, but that's one of those things. You got to keep it fresh. Don't have the same description. But when you do have the same description, use it for a purpose. And in this purpose, it is meant to show the similarities and their growing friendship. And they're still struggling, like getting to know one another. So it's still a tight smile, but it's a smile.
It's a smile. Now, Nesta, despite having been eaten out by Cassian, still has a warped understanding of their relationship. Quote, there'd been no hint this morning as to what had gone on between them last night, as if the debt between them had been paid, and he had no further interest in touching her, like she was an itch scratched, and that was it. Or perhaps he had not enjoyed it as she had? The mentality, I've talked a lot about reciprocity with Nesta and how if someone does something for her, she has to pay back that debt. And we see that here too in the sexual favors, right? And I do wonder if this mentality is supposed to be reflective of the fact that she and her family were rich and then went into debt. It's ingrained into her how all relationships function. They're all transactions, essentially. Yeah. There has to be equal give and take on both sides.
Yep.
And that's why no kindness is granted unless payment is returned, which is why every moment of kindness and vulnerability that's provided to Nesta must be reciprocated.
Nesta needs Taylor Swift in her life. There's that one song, you did a number on me, but honestly, baby, who's counting? I did a number on you, but honestly, baby, who's counting?
Yep.
There's a part that kills me, and that's when Nesta asks Gwyn why does she not train, and if it's because Cassian, who is a man, would be the one who's training her, and Gwyn will not answer. Quote, Gwyn didn't answer, and Nesta knew she had no right to push, not when the color stole over Gwyn's cheeks and her head bowed slightly. Shame. It was shame and fear. That hurts. That really hurts my heart. Everything about that hurts because we know Gwyn is a survivor of sexual assault and she feels shame for not being able to be comfortable with a good man and feeling safe with that. And it's not something that Nesta should push. It does work out in the end, but I hurt so much for Gwyn here. But also, I find it to be, I'm going to fucking stop saying interesting, curious, because Nesta has experienced shame as well recently too. But these two emotions that they're both experiencing are also so different in so many reasons. And I love their friendship because they are so similar, but so incredibly different. And honestly, Gwyn, no one should feel shame for that.
I agree. Take a sip.
Take a sip before we get to the last chapter.
We are in chapter 24. And as we know, or we will learn, Nesta loves music. And we see that connection reflected in Cassian. He watches Nesta train one day and, quote, a light shone in her face as her body flowed through the motions, a slingshot of strength, all narrowing to a point of impact. He'd always felt that way when he did the movements correctly, like his body and mind and soul had lined up and begun singing. Although they're on different spectrums, Nesta loves music and dancing, Cassian loves fighting, but they are both connected by movement and music, not literal music, but how it makes their body sing. Now, it's at this point that Cassian's called to the library by Clotho because Nesta has been training and won't listen to Clotho when she says stop. During their interaction, Clotho calls Cassian Lord Cassian. Quote, just Cassian, he said, as he had said so many times now. You are a lord in good deeds. It is not a title born, but earned. He bowed his head as he said thickly, thank you. I love this little moment because Cassian's almost moved to tears because someone finds him worthy and thinks of him as good, because that's what he wants. He wants to prove that his mother brought something good into the world. And I think it's especially meaningful because Clotho has suffered so much at the hands of men that for her to say that he's good is like exponentially more important.
Yeah. Oh, it's true.
And quite frankly, Nesta and Cassian, like we've said many times, are a reflection of one another. He needs to be told he's worthy just as much as Nesta needs to be told she is worthy.
It's true. He's not infallible. Like, he needs his own hype as well. Oh, baby boy. So Clotho tells Cassian that Nesta has a will of iron, and Cassian corrects her and says it's steel instead. And there's two reasons for that. The first one, steel is stronger than iron. Yes, I did have to Google that to confirm. Two, iron, initially, this comes from like traditional Fey lore or fairy lore, and this was in the first book, that iron was rumored to make Fey weaker. It ended up being a false rumor and does not do anything to the Fey, but I feel like with the legend, the representation remains that iron is not as strong. It's meant to hurt the Fae, and her will is stronger than that. While Cassian trains Nesta in the library, because at this point it's like the very famous where he goes down to the library and she messes up her elbow on purpose, and he was like, lift your elbow up higher, punch. And then he was like, hey, can I show you how to punch, but in a really like proper way? And do I have your consent for touching your elbow? And she goes, yes. Anyway, while Cassian trains Nesta in the library, quote, then he swallowed because there she was, a glimpse of that person he'd known before the war with Hybern had ended, a glimmer of her, like a mirage. Like if he looked at it too long, she'd slip away and vanish. Cassian does not love this current version of Nesta any less than that past version of Nesta. What he saw in that moment is a healed Nesta versus a non-healed Nesta, one that is getting her glimmer, her shiny back, and the other one who is still struggling. And what I like about it is that he's not romanticizing this past version of her. He's just seeing it as a measuring stick of someone who is just trying to get their glow back.
I like that too. Now, Nesta thinks that having Cassian train her in the library for the priestesses to see will do the trick to convince them to come to training. So, Nesta is disappointed when that is not the case. Quote, perhaps she was a good-for-nothing after all. Perhaps she'd been a fool to think that this trick might convince them. Maybe physical training wasn't what they required to overcome their demons, and she'd been arrogant enough to assume she knew what they needed. This whole thing makes her feel othered again, because she feels like she understands the priestesses, she feels empathy for them, she identifies with them, but they don't need what she needs. And that makes her feel shitty about herself.
Again, Nesta needs to save the priestesses or she won't be able to save herself. Didn't we learn this with what Elain just said? Don't make my trauma your trauma, but no, representation, just keep going. Metaphors.
Now, Nesta goes back to her room, and when she gets there, there's a book for her. And at first, she intends to pass it off until she realizes it's Cassian's. And it's called The Dance of Battle, which goes back to what Cassian was just thinking before about how the movement of fighting makes his soul, his body sing. It's something they both can connect to. It's dance for her, it's battle for him, and the overlap where social settings can be like battle. And the idea that Cassian leaves this for her touches her deeply. Quote, Nesta peered at the manuscript full of Cassian's scent, as if he'd read it 1,000 times. He'd left it for her, deemed her worthy of whatever lay inside. Nesta perched on the edge of the bed and thumbed open the text.
It's beautiful. I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier before, but we're coming back to it, that reading knowledge, it's something to be gifted when you are worthy. And it deems you whether you are worthy or not. She gave the gift to the house. The house has been gifting her with books. And now Cassian has entered this little gifting circle by gifting her a book that means something to him. Side note, Feyre never received the gift of knowledge. She had to learn that later. And maybe it was then trained into Nesta to not think Feyre was worthy, because Feyre was never taught to read. And it doesn't matter. She was old enough to know how to read. And I know like Feyre wasn't completely illiterate, but her education was severely ignored before they even lost their money.
And the fact that it's not like Nesta was working during those 10 years. She
I
couldn't
know.
teach Feyre how to read?
Yeah, she could have. She could have.
Yeah. Now, as we've talked about before, exchanging books is Nesta's love language. Cassian has done it here. Emery and Gwyn will do it later. Even Feyre and Elain, by the end of the book, are going to gift Nesta basically a gift card to go buy books, up to 300 books or something to that effect. Nesta thinks, quote, "It was astonishing how much of the art of warfare was like the social manipulation her mother had insisted she learn." It's convenient, but also I like it that it's SJM's way of explaining how Nesta takes to like battle and learning from Cassian so quickly, because she's been bred to be good at manipulation. Therefore, she will also be good at battle. Is it believable? No. But, you know, we suspend our disbelief.
We suspend it. Sorry, I just thought about like the gifted knowledge. And yesterday I was at a rare book fair and I saw a first edition Pride and Prejudice of the 3 volumes going for $277,000. That's all. I would love to be gifted.
Now, we've talked a lot about Nesta feeling like a failure and how Feyre is a reminder of that. So what does it mean when Nesta thinks this? Quote, "Did it matter if the priestesses didn't show up for training? Beyond her own reluctance to concede failure, did it matter? It did. Somehow it did. She had failed in every aspect of her life, utterly and spectacularly failed, and keeping others from realizing it had been her main purpose. She had shut them out, had shut herself out, because of the weight of all those failures threatened to shatter her into 1,000 pieces."
Nesta needs to do this because she needs to show that she is worthy of doing good. I know we keep repeating that, but that's the theme of this book, so I can't help you guys. We're going to keep repeating it.
Yeah. Now, Nesta might not be a traditional eldest daughter in how we or culturally might think of eldest daughters, but I do want to point out that she does have some traits of eldest daughter syndrome, which is not a real diagnosis. It's just what we have collectively agreed upon.
It's a real Taylor Swift song, and she knows, and we all know.
We all
Love
know.
Taylor.
Social media knows.
Yeah.
So first off, eldest daughters typically are perfectionists, and they often feel they must be perfect, which leads to high stress and a deep fear of failure. And I can speak to that one. And then there's the failure narrative. Because eldest daughters are accustomed to holding everything together, not really Nesta, they may view needing help or taking time for themselves as a personal failing. Nesta doesn't want to fail. She doesn't want to be rejected. She doesn't need to be perfect, but she wants to be worthy.
Yeah.
And she feels like every failure is a knock against her worthiness.
It's so true. And then the chapter, part 1, ends with Gwyn signing up. It got me emotional when I read it.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
It was chills. I can't wait to get more Gwyn. I've got a question for you, Amy.
Yes.
This wraps part 1 of this book. What progress have we seen in the characters, the plot, and the themes of this novel?
So, just however long Nesta's been training, I can't tell you right now. Is it a week? Is it 2? Is it 3? I don't know. But what we have seen of her is an willingness to be open, especially with Cassian, because she feels the least judged by Cassian. And we're seeing how, so long as she doesn't feel judged, so long as people are willing to reach out to her in a positive way, then she is willing to reach back. And that's a huge, huge improvement from who Nesta was in chapter 1. She's not perfect. She's still struggling with self-hatred. There's still a lot of negativity and a lot of lashing out. But again, we're just barely a month in, if even, into her whole training sequence. So I wouldn't expect more from that.
Yeah.
As far as the plot goes, I guess now it's just not Nesta and Cassian. Now we've got Gwyn. So
we have the other plot going on in the background, which is the queens and the trove. And yeah, it's just a thing that needs to be there to further the physical movement of this book.
Yep.
What I enjoy about this is that currently Nesta is still directing all self-hatred, all anger inward versus like the anger that she should have at her dad. Like, it's funny because she does have anger for her dad, but it's not the right kind of healthy anger that she has at the very end. Anger is meant to be internalized, even though she's angry at other people, but self-hatred is meant to be internalized. Hope is meant for others. Hope is not necessarily meant for her. Hope is to be projected on others and to be viewed at there, but it's not meant for her just yet. For only part 1 of this book, for only like not even, I think, 30% into this book, it's surprisingly like a lot has happened. Like you could have just a part 2 and wrap this all up, and arc wise, it would still make sense. I'm very fascinated to be like, what more is there? And I know there's a lot more, but this just shows how much time SJM is spending on the emotional arc of these characters and the emotional journey of these characters. If this growth that we've experienced, which frankly is as much growth as we've seen in single books from other characters, I'm not saying in this series, but in other books in general, and that's just part 1. And honestly, for how much she's grown from the beginning of part 1 to the end of part 1 is huge. That is a novel within itself. SJM has set up the pace and standard of what we can expect. We can expect, if this is how much Nesta has grown and also not grown, just wait till the end of part whatever.
Right. And I feel like this book is essentially a year long.
It is.
Maybe a little less than, maybe 6 months. I don't remember entirely, but I appreciate that because some people have a problem with how this book ends and how the Valkyries are able to complete the blood rite. But in terms of like length of time and the rate at which Nesta progresses, it's not entirely unbelievable because, I mean, we have to suspend our disbelief on so many things already.
Like a tongue being able to like go in and like go aggressively on the roof of her mouth and then also like curve inside her. I have so many questions.
If you're okay with the way Feyre develops in Mist and Fury and the way she's able to use her powers by the end of Mist and Fury, if you're okay with that, then you have to be okay with Nesta.
You've got to be so okay with Nesta. And arguably, Nesta grows way more than Feyre does in the entire series. And I'm not even saying that Feyre doesn't grow. Like, Feyre grows a lot. That's not even me being like, she barely does anything. No, that's me saying, yeah, Feyre does grow a lot. But Nesta has so much more to deal with.
Yeah.
For characters that are not the most powerful High Lord to have ever existed, for a character to not be the High Lady and who's been gifted these 7 powers from all the High Lords, right? For not having the absolute main characters be center stage, this book holds on their own, and these characters are incredibly strong because you could very much have the fact that Cassian is not the High Lord. He is never going to be High Lord. Knock on wood, toy. But like, you know, that is not his journey. And normally the story is about the person who's going to become the most powerful. We already met the most powerful. We already met the king and queen, basically. Like, that's already done and past. And they're still there. So how are you going to make us care about these characters and root for them? And not just that, but still have respect for their strength.
Yeah.
That's impressive. It's being done.
Yeah, it is.
Good luck with Elain. Let's sign off.
Thanks for listening to Book Talk for Book Talk with Jack and Amy. Join us Wednesday for our Breadcrumbs and Broomsticks discussion from today's chapters of Sarah J. Maas's A Court of Silver Flames.
If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps other readers find us. And of course, we'd love to hear what you thought of today's episode. Share your comments through our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com, and we might feature your feedback in a future mini episode or in a Patreon exclusive episode.
For merch and more ways to support the show, head to booktalkforbooktalk.com. You can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at the handle Book Talk for Book Talk. And don't forget to join us as we keep the analysis going by subscribing to our Substack to get more insights into the romantasy and romance genres. Head to the subtextsocietyjournal.substack.com. Bye.
Bye.